Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Crazy Canuck Truckin' Podcast. I am one of your hosts, the Size Matters Dakotant, and I'm here with
Crazy Canuck Dave. Hey, Size Matters. It's nice to see you again.
Howdy, Dave. Well, we've got lots to talk about today, but as always, I do want to remind you that if you'd like to get in touch with us, don't forget to use Crazy Canuck Truckin', whether it's on Instagram, Twitter, at Gmail, on YouTube, any of those places to not only listen to the podcast, but reach out and share thoughts, ideas, and of course, looking forward to all of your critiques because you sometimes have good ideas and you just keep us in line. And today, one of the ways to keep us in line is our 10 code, Dave.
What do we have today?
What's
the 10 code today?
I was thinking of using 1022, means report in person to. And the reason I chose that is because one of our persons is missing, so you're going to have to report back to her. Victoria is not here today. Want to let us know what's going on?
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on for VIP. She had a close family member that died from a brain injury, left behind a pregnant wife, along with a 1 or 2 year old son, and other things going on in her life as well. So it's been pretty rough time for her right now. So we've been texting back and forth, and I talked to her on the phone earlier today and said, you know what, I'll update you later on the interview, and you just take your time, and we love you. So to the Boyd family down in Missouri, we keep you in our thoughts and prayers. And it hits pretty close to home for me, Bridget, because my wife would have been in that same situation. Head injury. She was pregnant. We had 2 children at the time, and she was pregnant. And somehow I'm still here. So it has kind of hit home. And so, of course, for VIP, she can take all the time she needs, and we'll continue on.
And for those of us who know her and listen to her when she's on the podcast with us, we can all ask our favorite higher power to make sure to keep an eye out for her family as well.
Yeah.
So. Now, I think that you have someone to talk about and share today who might be helpful in reminding us to be content and look for the good.
Yes, that is absolutely right. So for those that are not watching on YouTube, I'm going to describe what we're doing here. And I'm going to play a little video for Bridget.
Okay.
And I'll describe it, and then you tell me what you think of this person.
He does this to me a lot, and I just wind up hoping for the best that I'm not completely freaked out by what I see.
So look at this young lady. She's, I don't know, looks like 500 or 600 pounds she's holding up in the air. And she's going to do some squats. What do you think, Bridget, when you see a person like this?
Part of it is mind over matter. Secondly, she's got fabulous form for lifting weight that heavy. And I think overall, there are reasons why people choose to work that hard, and they have found it helps them in some way, and it's a great motivator. So what's the rest of the story for her?
Well, I saw something similar to that a couple years ago. I don't know exactly how long ago it was, but I saw a video of this young lady doing amazing stuff, and I thought, man, she is an awesome athlete. And then I found out the rest of the story.
Okay.
So if you look in your notes, I'll introduce you to Courtney Turner. So welcome to our little podcast, Courts. And
thank you.
Bridget, I'm going to read it then. And
right.
It's a little piece taken off of Courtney Turner's podcast, What is Movement? Or her website. Courtney Turner was born with congenital rubella. Her mother had the German measles during first trimester of pregnancy. Some of the ramifications were unilateral blindness, severe bilateral hearing impairment, hypotonia affecting the limbs, heart complications, asymmetrical bone development, stunted growth, poor fine and graphic motor coordination, and several other afflictions. Doctors told her parents the best they could hope for was to find an institution to put her in for life. From the baby nurse who put her in a wet sandbox, to her grandfather building a balance beam, and exercises that her mother developed, to her childhood gymnastics and other individualized sports, Courtney is a prime example of how movement is integral to development and healing. She attributes her ability to overcome lack of motion parallax, depth perception, poor vestibular sense, hypotonic muscles, and poor coordination to the movement practices she was immersed in from infancy through adulthood. She hopes to inspire others to find ways to inhabit their physical home and move in ways that heal their mind, body, and spirit. Now, Size Matters, what do you think of what you saw with that young lady pumping weights?
Again, all you have to do is work hard to overcome. I have a feeling we're going to hear more.
So, after that long introduction, thank you for coming on with us, Courts. It's been an honor to follow you on social media, especially through Instagram, and to watch all of these amazing videos that you put together.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. I'm honored to be here.
That's what caught my eye. Size Matters is that she's not just a fantastic athlete, but she overcame so much to get to that point. Like, she does more than most people do, and she has a bunch of challenges.
Mhm.
So why don't you, Courts, why don't you take us? We gave the Cliff's Notes version here. I heard you say that the other day. That's kind of a throwback to our childhood
Yeah.
in high school.
I don't know that this generation even knows what I'm talking about when I say Cliff Notes, but
We had the Google Notes version, I guess.
yeah,
Yeah.
sure. The
So-
Wikipedia version.
What's your first memories, and what drove you to, like, you had so many issues.
Mhm.
How, tell us more.
Well, yeah. So when you asked about some of my earliest memories, I do remember my grandfather building this beam. It was actually my mom's idea. And they thought it would help me to develop my vestibular sense. Vestibular is very much affected by hearing in the inner ear because I was hearing impaired and I didn't get hearing aids until I was almost 6 because I learned how to speak by reading lips. So my vestibular was very challenged and I was blind in one eye. I wore a patch over my sighted eye every other day of my childhood. So essentially blind and deaf every other day of my childhood.
Wow.
So my mom had this idea that she would develop a beam that I could walk on every day, regardless of whether I had the patch on or not. And that would help strengthen my proprioception and my vestibular, my balance, and just my general bearings as I navigate through the world. Regardless of what happened and regardless of whether, I had the visual acuity or not. So my grandfather built this beam and then he would make it narrower at the end of the week if I completed it successfully for the week. So it started off like a very wide, low plank, and then he would eventually make it narrower and narrower so that I could walk on a beam. And when I was about 4 years old, I went to day camp. And when I was at the day camp, they had a gymnastics program. And I walked into the gym and I saw the beam. And I ran over to the beam. I was super excited because it looked all familiar to me. So I had like warm, fuzzy feelings towards it. And I fell in love with gymnastics from a very early age. So yeah, I don't know. I did eye exercises really every day for most of my childhood for about 2 hours a day. We would do all sorts of I'd have to play light bright, where I don't know how familiar you are with light bright, but
Yep.
tiny, tiny little light bulbs. And you
Another thing from our childhood.
Yeah, right. I'm bringing back all sorts of memories today. So I would try and make these pictures and replicate it, but I'd have a patch on my eye, so I really couldn't see. As a kid, I had enough vision in that eye that if my stronger eye was closed, I could see the big E on the chart. When both eyes were open, though, the strong eye was dominant and took over completely. However, I developed glaucoma. I really have only light dark vision now. I can tell you the light's on or off. I really don't have more than that in that eye anymore.
Okay, so that's just in the lesser eye, correct? That eye is the one that's light dark. Okay, got it.
Yeah, the stronger eye did not get 20/20
Okay.
even corrected, but it's a knock on wood. But it's pretty, functional, thank goodness. But I have rubella pigmentation behind the sighted eye. And
Okay.
that was actually how they confirmed that I was born with congenital rubella, because the doctor had read the titer when my mom was sick. He read it as a 112. He was dyslexic. It was really 121. Had he read it as being 121, my mom would have had an abortion. So the hospital knew this, and they knew that the doctor had made a mistake, so they were covering up for him. And yeah, so they really didn't know. My mom didn't know. She kept asking them to do all these tests, and when they they kept denying that anything was wrong. And my mom found that one eye kept rolling up in the top of my head, and she kept asking about that, and they kept saying baby's eyes don't focus, and she said, yeah, but one eye is focusing, so why isn't the other one? And she realized one day that it looked a lot like my grandfather, so my maternal grandfather, her father, and he had just had cataracts. So she went hunting around from doctor to doctor, and they confirmed that I had a cataract in my left eye. They removed it when I was 3 months old. The cataract surgery back then was very different than what it is today. So they removed it. They pulled the iris. They left debris behind the retina. They had to go back and do what's called a retinal cleanup. And when they did that, they found rubella pigmentation behind the sighted eye, confirming that I was born with congenital rubella. So,
Okay.
yeah. I don't know what else. There's lots more, but yeah.
You took all those things. You grew up. What did you decide to do with them from there? All of the experiences that you had and all the things that you learned to do.
In terms of what specifically?
Well, so let's just put it this way. There's a whole lot of people that are going to tune in today and say, I don't know who Courtney is. So Courtney, what do you do today?
What do I do today? Well, it's been quite a trajectory, because what I did 2 years ago is very different than what I'm doing now.
What? Has there been some crazy thing happening in the world that has messed things up in the last 2 years?
There's been crazy reactions to things, but I don't know about things. The things that have happened haven't been all that crazy. People get sick, but the reactions have been really crazy. So there's definitely major upheaval and major regulations and restrictions that have impacted most of us, and certainly me. I had recently, shortly before, prior to lockdown, started a fairly new career. I started doing motivational speaking and aerial acrobatic performances with my speeches. And it was it's very difficult, for those who don't know, to break into the world of public speaking, regardless of what field it is. So it was really a major accomplishment that I was starting to book events, and then I had some events around the country. And when the lockdown started, I did do a couple of Zoom events. That's even harder to break into, because it is. People are not very likely to book you on a computer screen and pay you if they don't know who you are. So, and I obviously couldn't do the aerial acrobatic performances on Zoom because my apartment has very low ceilings and I live in a small apartment. So that really could kind of put a damper on things for me. But it was also a very big deal for me because it was fairly recent that I had started to share my story publicly. So I think when Dave and I connected, it was like really one of the first times I had started sharing my story. It was something I was mainstream my whole life. I was tremendously bullied, and I was a pariah. It was a very hard thing growing up. So it was not something I felt very comfortable sharing with other people. I also never wanted to be pitied or get, seen as different. So I really just, everybody has challenges is kind of how I look at things. And, we have a set of cards that we're dealt, and it's up to us how we play that hand. So, I just never really saw it as like, let me put this out to the world that these are the challenges I deal with. We all have challenges. But I did, after I had tried out for American Ninja Warrior, I didn't get picked. My video had gotten leaked. That's a whole long story, but the long and short of that story is that I couldn't rescind it, and it had already overnight been seen by thousands of people, which, I certainly had no social media presence at that time. I was an actress, but the thing, not like on social media, so it was really odd that so many people had seen my video overnight. And when I didn't get picked to run the course, I took it as a sign that, to look at what the positives that I could garner from the situation were. And the thing that kept coming back unanimously was how inspired people were by my story. So I came up with this idea of doing a show where I could showcase athletes with disabilities, and that it would be such a rewarding, vindicating process for them, and it would be inspiring and motivating for those watching. And what I realized when I started to interview people was that most of them didn't move in spite of, they moved because of. And that's when I realized my premise was that all human beings are designed to move, and the ways in which we do our unique creative expression. So it was, and I also realized through that there was value in sharing my story, because although I don't find me all that inspiring because I live with me day in, day out, so I think most people feel that way about themselves. Um, but I recognize that there was value in other people learning from how somebody overcomes challenges, because we all have challenges. And so while mine might not be exactly the same as yours or yours, we all do possess challenges, and we all are faced with choices, and they're daily and momentary choices of how we're going to overcome those challenges. So I felt that if I could help others by sharing my story, that would be, rewarding and vindicating for me, and cathartic for me, and, validating and, meaningful that I could help others. So through that. So, that was what I had forayed into. And I was really starting to do that. And I was also coaching CrossFit, kind of on the side. All that got shut down and taken away. And I was in a really bad place when the lockdown started. And I really don't want to undermine that. I don't want to be dramatic about it either. But when I say I was in a bad place, it was not good. We were the lockdowns. I live in Santa Monica, California. The lockdowns were incredibly draconian. People were getting arrested for walking on the beach and for going on hikes. It was absolutely absurd. And just, I'm like, so there's a virus out there. So let's do everything possible to shut down people's immune systems. Let's isolate them. Let's shut down gyms. Let's not let them get any fresh air or sunlight. But let's keep donut shops open. Let's keep the liquor stores open. Let's close the dental offices because our teeth will be so rotted and we'll be so drunk we won't care. Yeah, I'm being sarcastic for those who can't tell. But yeah, it really took a toll on my mental health. And so much of my training, I realized, was really about my mental health more than anything. It's always been kind of, that reminder that I'm capable, that reminder that, I can overcome things that are difficult and challenging. And it was like a positive feedback loop for me. Not that every day of my training is great, not that I always, accomplish things that I can do. And, from many athletes' perspective, what I do is not even very impressive at all. But the reality is when I go in there each day and take on something that I don't know that I can do and I accomplish it, that was a huge reminder to me, for taking on other challenges in life. And it was also my social interaction. So all those things being taken away from me, not to mention, income and all that, but, it also took away a lot of, my security. I don't think, security in life is never a guarantee. It's not, I don't mean it from that perspective, but a sense of this notion of that I knew what I was doing, that I knew I had a plan, that, there was something to work towards. And that was all kind of taken away from me. So all this to say, a bunch of people had started to suggest I start a podcast. People had actually suggested I do writing as well. But the first day of the lockdown, I was going to write my book. I sat down in front of the computer the end of 10 hours, I had a blank screen staring back at me. And I'm very familiar with the creative process, and I knew I couldn't force it. I was just too overwhelmed, too anxious, and really too depressed. And so I ordered a bunch of books, and I decided maybe that would inspire me, and then I could go back to the writing process. And through that ordering the books, I realized that I had all these ideas I really wanted to talk about and nobody to talk to. So that when people kept suggesting the podcast, I was like, well, that would force me to talk to people. And I really started it thinking, if no one listened, at least it would take me out of this isolation that was really doing a number on me. So
That's
to
kind of
answer
where
your
we're at,
question,
Bridget.
very long-winded, but to answer your question, I have the Courtney Turner podcast now. I'm a podcast host. I am also the co-founder. I have two partners on truthmatters.biz. We're in the process of transitioning over to truthmatters.media, and it's a multimedia publication site. We have news articles, op-ed articles, and a bunch of podcasts that we do on there. The Courtney Turner podcast is on there. We also have Calling America, which is where there are 5 of us. We go through different initiatives of things that happen in various states and how they're affecting each of the states or potentially could affect the states. And then we also have a new one. I've only done 1 episode so far, and right now it's just on my channel, but it will be moving over to Truth Matters, and that's called True Discussions, and that's where the co-founders do like an introductory dive on various topics. The last one was on the Great Reset. The next one's going to be on DARPA. So
yeah, it's kind of like us, Bridget. We needed somebody to talk to because we like to talk to people, so we started a podcast.
Yeah.
But I have a couple of things. Like I think we met first through Instagram like 2.5 years ago, because you were doing your aerial stuff, you were trying to get your speaking off the ground, and I remember talking to you about your story, because that's what intrigued me, was the story behind the athlete. I saw an athletic person doing things that most people can't do. I mean, you say it's other athletes, it's not that great compared to other athletes. I kind of disagree.
Thank you.
You're way above what normal athletes can do.
Thank you.
And when it comes to the story, I think, we have a little bit in common there, because when people were telling me, like, you got to get out and talk about your story. And I'm like, why? Like, my story's not that interesting. Same reasons you had, and I live with myself, like you said, and there's other people that have it worse.
Right.
And typically, I don't know, you and I think are the same this way, that we always look to other people and say, well, they have it way worse, so their story would be more compelling. I don't feel that I'm that bad off. But when you start talking about all that you said at the beginning of the podcast, when you're talking about your hearing and sight loss and stuff, there's many other things, and we kind of gloss over that. And when you start going into all these different things, it's like, yeah, compared to most people, we're a pretty good train wreck, And so it's interesting. We both had the same kind of pathway with telling our story. And I'll mention one thing, Bridget. When you see her videos, she does a ton of videos on Instagram and stuff on her kinetic quartz. And no matter how she does, there's always a clap at the end. And you talked about it a little bit. So celebrating the little victories, even if it doesn't feel like a victory, pat yourself on the back because you did something.
Yeah.
Maybe not perfect, but you did something. And that is another thing. Those 2 things really stuck out to me.
Yeah.
And, the second one being the clap and being happy that you did something and continuing to motivate yourself.
Yeah, and the clap, it has a lot of elements for me, but I think in life, like I think before we started, we were talking about social media, and like if you're feeling down on yourself, you can guarantee social media can help make you feel lower. Uh, or if your ego is feeling a little too inflated today, just hop on social media and you'll find somebody, take a little pin, just poke a nice hole. So I think that, it's really, as human beings, we all love getting, validation. That's a natural thing. I'm not, I'm not disparaging that at all. That's a very natural, normal human desire. However, we can't count on it. And so, the thing that we can count on is being able to, support ourselves and to motivate and inspire ourselves and to reward ourselves for accomplishing things that we set out to do. It's not always going to be, a steady, like the climb up to Mount Everest, just straight, smooth sailing. There's going to be little stops along the way. You might even slide down a little bit. And that's the reality of how life goes. That's the reality of what, setting goals and achieving them and going after them looks like. So I think that along the way, it's really easy to get discouraged. But knowing that you can, count on yourself is really, really helpful. If you can be your own cheerleader, that's going to get you a lot further than, trying to count on other people. As I said, it's great and you want to seek out people to find that motivation, to find that support system. That's equally important. When I was a little kid, that was like one of the things they would always do whenever, I think lots of kids had that experience, but I really remember it. I remember like every little thing that if I achieved, they were all like, yay, Courtney, like family standing around me and cheering. And there's actually a neuropsychological benefit to clapping. Like it stimulates the nervous system. It's a very positive feedback loop in terms of, the dopamine reward circuitry system. So there's lots that you achieve by clapping for yourself. And the other thing is you rally support system around you. I mean, it's contagious. People see you cheering for yourself. They kind of want to cheer for you too. So I think it's important.
Yeah.
I think you're right, because just the same way that kindness or laughter can be contagious, that's all part of being a positive attitude. So why not? Why wouldn't there be that natural tendency to want to join in and be a part of that? So I agree with you completely. Do I get to ask about politics, or should I just stay with the mental health, because that's probably safer?
Whatever you want. I'm pretty transparent. I'm open to talking about anything.
I can't. Dave's sharing a video.
See, you'll see the clap. So this was just not even 2 months ago. See that? The little clap at the end.
That is ideal, because again, it draws that attention. And especially when you're doing something physically fit in the way that you are, that clap gets others around you, again, their attention, because that's a motivator to them, and that can reflect back to you.
Yes.
So I think that's fabulous.
So Bridget, I want to see some video of you doing that for next podcast.
Yeah, only if I will have to fake it like they used to in the old Batman TV shows, where I'm gonna have to like lay on the ground and pull myself instead of actually doing that type of physical work. Nowhere am I that good.
Bridget walks like 10 miles a day.
Like a penguin, but still. So
awesome. Yeah, walking, people underestimate the power of walking. I recommend it to everybody. Yeah.
When you say, once again, back to cleaning your head and good health, that's a way to do it. So I get what you're saying. So with all of the things that you do, what has been the biggest aha moment that you have had when you've either talked with someone else and you didn't realize how the effect that you had on them, or someone else's effect on you?
Wow.
Told you she likes to ask questions.
I'm just nosy.
You got some good ones.
Great question. I feel like I'll have like a flood of instances as soon as I hop off. So my aha moment when I realized that I had an impact on somebody else, or when somebody else had an impact on me,
Actually, I can go either way. Either example, whichever one comes to mind first.
Well, this was, I mean, I don't know if like, I mean, I actually think there are many, but this one comes to mind because it was very powerful. There was someone who was following me on Facebook for years. And, you know, we connected more in, you know, political, sociocultural kind of stuff. But she was battling cancer, and I didn't know at the time, but she told me later that she had been watching my videos and I had become like a virtual trainer for her. And she became part of a like fitness overcoming cancer clinical trial study.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so, I mean, that really touched me. Like, I had no idea. I mean, it was somebody who was really just following my journey. She was always super supportive, really sweet. But I had no idea what she was going through or that I had had that kind of an impact on her. So, yeah, and that's kind of cool. That's like one of the really positive things about social media. You know, there's a lot that's not, but that some of those things are. So,
I agree with you. That is a huge positive, and you don't get that all the time in social media. But here's the thing. There's no wrong answer, number one, to what was positive in your life. And number two, I think you just highlighted the fact that we never know what little thing that we did that made someone else's day or just provided a good help for them. So never be afraid to do those things.
and I'll tell you this too. This is it's not quite the same, but it's very related. And it was a big aha moment that I've kind of come to recently. You know, I
Okay.
think anytime any entrepreneur can relate to this, anybody who sets big goals can relate to this. You know, I was talking before about like the clap for yourself because you're not always going to find the support that you need. And you know, like I said, we all want that. That's very normal and natural for humans to desire and crave that. However, I think more often what we do get is we get a lot of naysayers and anybody who's going after anything. You know, there's always those voices, and you know, it's most difficult when it's people who are close to you, people whose voices you
Yes.
really care about and respect. But even when it's not, it's hard to hear, you know, people not supporting you, people saying negative things. And when you just keep, if there's something you really believe in, there's something you're really passionate about, or something you really want, if you stay on course, it's really interesting to see people turn around. Very rarely will you get that acknowledgement. You know, will they come and say, but you'll see it. And that's something I've really noticed pretty recently is, you know, people who were not supportive, people who may have said not nice things or just, you know, discouraging or whatever it may be. And I just kind of kept going. And some of those people come around, like start liking things, sharing things, and that's, it's really, you know, they'll never come to me and apologize but I think for people, that's a really important thing to keep in mind is stay on track, focus on what's important to you, because the rest is a distraction. And I think it's kind of a good test. It's like, how much do you really want this? How much do you really believe in it? And where are your values? Is this important to you for the right reasons? Because if it is, then those voices really shouldn't matter. And I'm not saying they don't impact you, because we're human. Of course, you know, we feel it, but just keep staying on track and keep putting the work in.
That has to be the hardest thing right there.
Yeah.
To prioritize. What is it? What really is important and what doesn't matter, and what's just noise? Because some of us are really bad at just saying no and doing too many things when really it should just be about prioritizing it.
Yeah, totally. I get it. It's a challenge.
Every day.
Glad to get Size Matters in to help out with asking questions so that she takes an hour out of her busy day a couple times a month.
To be mouthy. That's what I do. I just come along to be mouthy.
Yeah, I love it. Great
Whatever
question.
works. So tell us a little bit about your Truth Matters. So actually, I want to start by this. We hear a lot of stuff in the media.
Yes,
we hear a lot of things.
Yeah.
What is it like? What is it like where you're living compared to what you hear in the media? I ask that because where I drive through the U.S. and Canada, because I'm an essential worker, so I get all over the place. what I hear in the media and what I see on the ground, it doesn't matter if it's rural, it doesn't matter if it's urban. Uh, I hear something totally different than what I hear in the media. I hear the odd time if I'm someplace, some people get concerned about having a mask on or not having a mask. But generally speaking, in most areas, um, I hear, I see people trying to be normal when the media is trying to tell people that everything's crazy. What, you're from Santa Monica,
I live in Santa Monica. Yeah.
so it's a different perspective than what we get up in the north. At least,
Um,
especially where Bridget is, in North
where are
Dakota,
you?
there's really no lockdowns. That people are just doing their normal life.
Yeah, I'm in North Dakota.
Oh yeah, you really it's free. It's open. Yeah.
Yeah.
Santa Monica is very different. So they have just reinstated the mask mandate. They're talking about going back into lockdowns. Um, they, yeah, I don't know really what more to say. And it's not safe. The homelessness is a real problem. And I don't know, Dave, you may have seen this video that I talked about it with my phone getting stolen out of my hand. I was literally, so now I have one that's like strapped onto me.
Right.
But I had like a phone wallet kind of case with my keys and everything. I was literally on it. I was leaving a voice clip like this. And some guy comes, snatches it out of my hand and runs off. I start running after him. There's no way I could catch him. So I start screaming. And I was like, he has my phone. Go get him. And people got in their cars. They actually drove and chased him down. And a guy got on his bike and was able to retrieve my stuff back for me. It was broad daylight. The liquor store next door actually caught the whole thing on film. I did call the cops. I mean, they didn't catch him, they didn't do anything. But yeah, it's really bad. I mean, that was broad daylight, in a really nice neighborhood. There's just no reason for that. It's because they've changed the laws. They've raised the 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 cost of like what's stolen to still consider it.
Oh, right. What would actually be like a minimum before they really do anything? Okay, got it.
So, yeah, it's not good. It's not good. I am really thinking about leaving. So, yeah, it's interesting.
Whenever I drive from the West Coast towards the east, a high number of license plates are California license plates. And they
Leaving
have
there.
luggage on them, and they may be pulling U-Hauls. Like, I was joking about it a few weeks ago. Is there going to be anybody left in California?
Yeah, right. I know.
There's so many people leaving.
It's a mass exodus. Yeah, it's a mass exodus. People are really.
Yep, there really is. And there's a number of Midwestern states that are truly picking up a lot of population right now because of that.
Yes. And it's understandable. I mean, it really is just poor governance. I mean, the ridiculously high taxes, ridiculous regulations on businesses. And then with the masks and the lockdowns, and people can't survive. This is not, it's not sustainable.
Tell us about Truth Matters then.
Truth Matters. Truth Matters is...
Do you like to consider yourself any wing, or what is your main concern with Truth Matters?
What do you mean, my main concern?
Like some people, there's a lot of left-wing media, and there's some people that brand themselves as right-wing media. Mm-hmm. And then there's people that want to just have the truth.
Yeah, well, that is our
Doesn't matter where it comes from.
Yeah, well, and we're not looking to take things from left, right. That's not the point of Truth Matters. The point of Truth Matters is to restore journalistic integrity, and to lead with. We're humans. We're not capable of absolving ourselves of bias. We all have our biases, and when we write or we do our podcast and we talk, it's going to be filtered through our lens, because that's all we're capable of doing. And we have our biases, our prejudices, and our opinions, and those are going to come through. But we really try to lead with the facts. And so all of our articles. You see the last article I wrote. I don't write as often. My partner Ethan writes every week. He's awesome. I do 2 podcasts a week, and then I do more of the like kind of deep dive articles. So my last article had 40 sources, 39 actually to be exact. That's a lot for one article. And
Right.
we list all of our sources so you can go and link on each of them. They have direct hyperlinks. We have the footnotes, so they have the list on the bottom as well. So the people can start doing their own research. So yes, obviously my thoughts and my reflections may come through in my writing, but my intention is not to color your perspective. My intention is to guide you through, what the facts presented are, and then to, hopefully inspire you to start digging and formulating your own thoughts based on that. So that's really our mission.
I saw a T-shirt. I think you were wearing it yesterday at the airport. Something about bring back critical thinking.
Yes, so ban critical theory and bring back critical thinking.
Yeah.
Yeah, that is really our mission, actually, is to bring back critical thinking, to restore critical thinking. We are very opposed to critical theory of all forms. Critical race theory is just another iteration of critical theory.
Yes.
Yeah. So, very opposed to all of that. We want people to think for themselves and, ask questions, begin the process of inquiry. So my podcast, the words on my logo are curiosity, resilience, and empowerment. And so curiosity, it is a creative process, actually, but it's curiosity. So I want people to ask questions. I want them to explore. I want them to, be open to ideas. And through that process, it's going to be a trial and error. You're going to discover things that you may not have realized were true. You're going to discover things that may not be so comfortable. And that's, part of that learning process and that discovery process. And then through that, you develop resiliency because you realize that you can accept things that may not be so warm, fuzzy. You can, learn things that may shatter your whole worldview. And through that, you will learn and grow and pick yourself up. And that's very empowering. And so it's a feedback loop, hopefully a positive feedback loop that I want people to go through. But really, it does start with curiosity and being open to ideas and perspectives. So that's what the conversations are all about. And that's what the articles should be about as well.
Not listening to just one source, actually finding out what's going on. Like you said, using 40 different resources to find the answer.
Yeah, it's not about just listening to one source, but even if you're listening to that one source, it's about questioning that source. Where those sources come from humans are fallible. So, this is something I see from people a lot is like, oh, well, all of these things are true, and therefore, this whole thing must be true. And that's not accurate. You don't have to discredit something just because there's one mistake. If there's a comma misplaced in a document, that doesn't, negate the entire document. That means there was a mistake, there was one error, a grammatical error. The rest of the document may still be fantastic. And, that's something I really try to, impress upon people, especially when it comes to doing research. Like sometimes I will see people put out a video or an article, or a podcast, and there's I call it the sprinkling of truth. And there may be a hook gripping lie in there with lots of truth. And then people just accept the whole entire thing. And it's like, well, wait, no, parts of this are not accurate. That doesn't mean it's all inaccurate. So it really requires discernment. It really requires your own process of inquiry. So.
Absolutely.
What did they say? The best lies are ones that are told with an element of truth.
Yeah. Otherwise, they wouldn't be believable at all. You need that.
That's right.
Yeah. Yeah. That's how propaganda works. That's how controlled opposition works as well. So.
Yeah. What else do you have, Bridget?
That is my last question for the moment. I really appreciate the time, Courtney. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Yeah, it was an honor.
It's
been good fun. Thank you.
It's amazing to me what you have done with your life, Courtney.
Thank you.
And I've been so there's days that are tough, as you know, and watching you do your aerials or do different things on Instagram, you get down, and yes, that one with a rope that I just showed a few minutes ago, you kind of lost it a little bit there at the end, but still the clap at the end and the fact that you're getting out and doing it time after time, that just blows me away. I'm grateful for that. And I had a preconceived idea because you're from California, right? And the first thing that shattered that preconceived idea was when you put out a picture of the food you're eating, and I'm like, that doesn't look very California.
Oh, that's
and you
funny.
and you called me on that. You said, yeah, it doesn't look not what because I probably commented, and you said, yeah, not what you expected, right? I'm like, no. An actor from California, and but anyway, and you're like a beacon of light
Thank you.
in down in those areas, where there's people that don't want to think for themselves, and you want to think for yourselves. And I've thought of you often because of the lockdowns and because of the mask mandates for somebody like you. And I've actually brought up your scenario to other people. I said, what do you do with all of the deaf people? And
so hard.
everybody's wearing a mask. And if they only know how to read lips, then now they're not only deaf, they can't pick up on anything.
Yeah.
And a lot of people are like, didn't think about that.
No,
You know?
they don't. And they get so angry with me. I mean, that's been really interesting to watch from, as a study of human psychology. People get so frustrated. Like, do you think I'm trying to make this difficult? I can't hear you. I mean,
Yeah.
I can't see their lips. They're all muffled.
Right.
It's really difficult. And they get more and more irritated. They just start screaming at me. Like, there's nothing I can do. I cannot do anything about this. Like, either you take it down so that I can read your lips, or we're just going to continue to play this game where I can't understand you.
Yeah. Well, why don't you wrap us up, Bridget?
Courtney, thank you so much. You bring such a bright spot to people, and you, again, helping them sort out a little bit of fact from fiction, but also reminding them that they are a positive influence for others just as you are. So thank you for that very tremendously, for spending the time today. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Courts. I look forward to more times talking with you and following along with your Truth Matters and everything else that's going on.